What?
You know, some people feel like Breath of the Wild ruined the classic Zelda games, as if the older games suddenly just got worse or something. And I mean, if you're a person who has Breath of the Wild as their first Zelda game, it can be a bit of a challenge justifying going back to play the older entries. To some, they might even look like straight downgrades. You monster.
So why do you keep hearing older fans nagging you to play them? Are we all just blind fools? Well, maybe, but that's not the point. I'm here to give you, dear modern Zelda fan, your guide on how to think and approach the older Zelda games, both 2D and 3D. I can do this because I'm apparently old according to my girlfriend. So, my name's Ben, and join me as we take a look at the older Zelda games and why you should give them a go. So let's go!
Now, to start you off, you should be thinking of what exactly you enjoyed about Breath of the Wild. Were you into it because of the non-linear gameplay? Maybe more because of the world and characters? Maybe you're even in the camp of people who like the story. Whatever there was of that. So the first step is something you have to decide upon yourself, but generally speaking, I say there's 3 games to pick between as your first old Zelda game, and then move on from there. For the more story-focused of fans, I say give Majora's Mask a go. It's one of the darker Zelda stories told, and features a ton of memorable side quests, characters, and lets you tackle the game in a less straightforward way. I should know. As a kid, I didn't understand shit about English and reading, so I wasted a lot of time before I even got out of the main town area. For the more exploration-heavy open-ended person, I say give Wind Waker a go. It mixes old-school Zelda gameplay with a huge open ocean to explore, so in a sense it's the best transition point between old and new. For the person more interested in the characters and broader Zelda world itself, you can't go wrong with A Link Between Worlds. It's basically as close as you can get to the original Zelda with modern graphics, and therefore it's a perfect place to start your journey with the Zelda formula and world without being overwhelmed.
Now, I understand that those short descriptions doesn't do each game justice, so don't worry, one day I'll go deeper into each one. But sure, you have some games now, but then what? What is it like to actually play one of these games, and what do you need to know before heading in? Well, in truth, I think the biggest thing to remember with these games is that they are meant to test your exploration skills in a different way than modern Zeldas do.
Given the vast majority of games feature stuff like fully open worlds and a quest list always visible somewhere on the screen, you need to understand that the old Zelda games aren't like this. No, Zelda games most often give you a vague tutorial section in the beginning of each game, but it's not like those tutorials are disconnected from the main game. Instead, they're sneakily woven into the prologue without stopping you outright for the most part. And you'll also never see a skill tree or such pop up in any of these games. Furthermore, the old Zelda formula is by design linear, even though some of the games open up more, giving you the illusion of free choice. There's almost always one solution to a problem, and that solution is not something you decide yourself, such as in Tears of the Kingdom where you just build your solution or, in some cases, climb around it. Whether that's a good or a bad thing is personal preference, but that's how it is. You see, as far as exploration goes in these older games, you go by foot, sometimes horseback riding, sometimes a bird, a boat, or even a train. But you will never ever climb walls in the same way you do as in Breath or in Tears. So it's important to understand that the game world itself has a linear design, and trying to mess with that is just gonna ruin your play session. Now in the newer games you get stronger with the weapons you find and all, but in the older Zelda games you get stronger as you make story progress. Strength in itself is tied to items you carry, and I mean permanent items. These aren't gonna break on you, and sure as hell aren't just ways to attack with. The items of the older Zelda games are something you hear us older fans never shut up about, and that's for good reason. In these games, the items are most often what helps you explore and unlock more of the game world and progress in the story.
You might have heard the term dungeon thrown around when listening to older fans complain about the newer games' lack of them.
The dungeons are what you could compare to the divine beasts and temples in the newer games. However, that's pretty much where the comparison ends. The dungeons of the older Zelda games pretty much function like big mazes with puzzles for you to find your way through, whereas the dungeons of the newer games really are lackluster as hell given they take close to zero thought to get through. I guess the thing to remember is that the dungeons of the older Zelda games were almost always the highlight of each game. And I mean, most of the Zelda games featured around 6 or 8 of them, with the lowest number really being Majora's Mask with 4.
But alright, dude, so they're mazes. What's so fun about that?
Well, as I said earlier, the old Zelda formula tests exploration in a different way than the newer games. Basically, what makes the dungeons fun, for me at least, is that I really have to activate my mind and figure out how to navigate and solve various puzzles. So you really feel smart and kinda get a kick of satisfaction upon clearing a room or a hard puzzle, especially after hearing that sweet audio jingle as a confirmation of your success. But look, I'm not trying to make it sound like the old Zelda dungeons and whatnot were ultra hard or something. For sure, they offered up a lot more challenge than newer ones, but they won't ever be that hard that you outright need to stop and Google or something. Unless you're really bad at navigating, but then again, these games do a good job of helping you navigate anyway. Anyhow, not only are the dungeons filled with puzzles, there's almost always a specific item to get halfway through. These items are almost always essential for clearing the rest of the dungeon and offer up new ways to explore and uncover more secrets throughout the world. So what I'm getting at is that every dungeon in these older games really feel different from each other, given the difficulty is on a linear curve and then you unlock more ways to play the game as you beat them, which in turn makes them like checkpoints in the game, or a better word might even be markers if you will. And before someone brings it up, I am well aware that in the newer games you do get certain abilities after each of the 4 main dungeons, but really they are more quality of life upgrades rather than essentials as they were in the older games.
Basically, discussing older Zelda games feels different because you could very easily ask the person you're talking to how many dungeons they've beaten or which one was their last, and thus you could get a pretty clear understanding of how far they were in the game.
In the newer games, that kinda is lost given you don't have to do any of the dungeons at all. The shrine count also doesn't really come close as a replacement given you also don't have to do any of them to beat the game at all. And usually in the older games you get some kind of indication for how many of the main collectibles you've gotten from the dungeons so far in the main inventory screen of the game, showing clearly how much was left in the game. So it varies from person to person, but I really liked seeing my progress clearly laid out like that. And I guess another thing to be ready for is that the older Zelda games don't feature any kind of voice acting in cutscenes, but it's not like the game is on mute or anything. Every character in these games make loads of random noises, which in some cases might even make your parents or partner raise an eye. All I've said so far pretty much applies to both the 2D games and the 3D games, and if you're somehow in the camp of people who think 2D games are inherently worse than 3D ones just because of the perspective and the budget that went into making them, I just gotta say you are wrong as hell. Like, stop. Please don't skip out on a great game because of the perspective. I guess it's high time to answer the elephant in the room. Where the hell do you play these games? If you're one of the millions of people who own a Switch, you can play Zelda 1, Zelda 2, A Link to the Past, Ocarina of Time, Majora's Mask, Link's Awakening, Oracle of Ages and Seasons, and finally the Minish Cap on Switch Online. Otherwise, you also have Skyward Sword HD and the Link's Awakening remake available separately. If you're one of the few people who own a Wii U, you can play the Wind Waker HD, Twilight Princess HD, Phantom Hourglass, and Spirit Tracks. Note that since the Wii U store is shut down, the only real way to get Phantom Hourglass and Spirit Tracks going is to mod your system. Now, as for Link Between Worlds, you're stuck on 3DS for that one, so depending on where you live, it might also be worth to modify your system and download the game instead of finding a physical copy.
But hey, I understand that pretty much most of you watching this probably don't have your old systems just laying around like I do. So against Nintendo's will, emulation still is a pretty solid step. I won't provide you with any download links or anything, but it's very easy getting a 3DS or Wii U emulator up and running. Plus, your current computer, or phone for that matter, is probably more than enough to run these games. And if not, then hey, get a Raspberry Pi or something. It all works. That's the thing here.
I think that pretty much sums this all up. Don't be afraid to try one of these old games if you find Breath of the Wild or Tears of the Kingdom fun. I promise, despite the change in gameplay, there's a high likelihood of you actually liking these games. Plus, it's not bad to know a little more about gaming history, am I right? And with that, I'll leave it to you. Remember to subscribe if you haven't already, and I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. Bye! Well hey, thanks for sticking around the whole video. There's some real stuff brewing now in the works given the recent success of the channel itself, so I hope you'll stick around for what comes next.